So, you want to know what I did so horribly wrong. I'm here to admit my faults. I'm far from perfect, but you, our loyal subscribers and first-time listeners, frankly, you deserve better. Well, I made a mistake, a big one. I ruined the skin tone on the miniature I just painted.
Because I fucked up. Because I'm embarrassed and ashamed.
Okay, let's drop the act. We've all been here before, right? In previous videos, I've talked about how making mistakes while you're painting your miniatures can typically be corrected pretty easily. But what happens when you think you made the right decision, but after the dust settles, it turns out you were wrong? First of all, it's okay to admit it. In fact, it's healthy to. But sometimes it's a difficult hurdle to get over. So how do we come back from that? Let me talk you through what happened. This is Grimbo, the half-orc, half-ogre miniature I've been dying to paint for you guys. It is a kit bash. I added the axe and the hammer. Those are two magical weapons that he has in the game that we are playing. And yes, that is the hammer Mjolnir. I started out the way that I have been recently, with dry brushing on a dark gray coat over a black primed miniature, and then progressing the highlights from there. I am thinking about changing the way that I do this. I've been interested in the use of airbrushes for miniature painting for a long time, and I'm not the greatest dry brusher. I'm not convinced that this is my best work. But as you can see, the highlights gradually build up to near white, like a very close to a white highlight. And the first thing I did painting the miniature is actually mix two contrast paints together. This is Warp Lightning and Apothecary White. These will provide my foundation for that skin tone that I ruin later on. The coats went on super thin, but this is where I should have stopped. I was going for a muted green, slightly grayish look, and while this still didn't achieve exactly what I was going for, it was much closer than the fixes I tried to apply. But I moved on to the leather bits. Now to change up some of the tones, I'm using Dark Oath Flesh. Then I'm using Talisar Blue, which has pretty much become one of my favorite contrast paints. I love the vibrancy. And then moving to Skeleton Horde for these skulls on the front side of the model, and then also a lot of the additional fur bits on the lower half. Now with Aethermatic Blue, I wanted to apply a couple magical effects, but I decided to switch to the metallic coloration using Iron Breaker, so that way I could put the Aethermatic Blue over top of that. I almost think that I should have left Mjolnir as just the dry brush, because I think I liked that a little bit better than the metallic paint as well. Going into the final stages, I am shading parts of the miniature. This is Seraphim Sepia I'm using on the teeth. Then Nuln Oil got applied to all of those metallic colors because I truly believe that Nuln Oil was made for metallics. I also used the Nuln Oil to shade down all of Grimbo's hair. I still haven't figured out a great way to paint hair that works for me consistently, but I think this method did a little bit better of a job than I expected it to. And here it is, the fateful mistake. I decided to shade all of the skin with Coelia Green Shade. Now, looking back on it, I am not sure why I decided to try Coelia Green Shade. I think maybe I wanted to introduce some blue tone to that skin, but the result was very far from my intended endpoint. But of course, I didn't realize that right away. I went straight back into using that Aethermatic Blue on the weapons to add those magical effects, and now we're here. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the finished product on my display wheel, because while I don't like the way this came out, I don't think the miniature as a whole is bad. I think there are definitely some areas that I should go back and highlight and punch up, but I think the mistakes that I made on the skin tone have really turned me off of trying to improve this miniature. Some things that I do like are how the shading on the pants turned out. I think the contrast between the metallic bits and the fur on his boots and his pants and that blue tabard style dressing on his lower half, I think all of that came together really nicely. I always loved the look of snakebite leather, and for the most part I colored inside the lines. But this does bring me to the point of this video. It's a quick one, I know, but sometimes you just have to let it go. Send the miniature off into the sunset and know that next time you'll be able to do better. It is disappointing when you don't feel like you have the time to completely restart the paint job on a miniature, and it's a miniature you wanted to look exactly the way you wanted it to look. But it is important to take an objective stance to miniature painting. Sometimes it might not be your best work, but does that make it bad? That's what you guys get to decide. Roast it, praise it, do whatever you want, but do it down in those comments. And while you're down there, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Thank you for watching. I do have a couple other miniatures that I need to paint, and you will see the process. The first being the Black Order featuring Archon the Cruel, and once again, I am very excited to get these paint jobs done. I've had the miniatures for a very long time, and it's finally coming up. After I get that trio finished, I'll be moving on to this War Elephant, which I've had for equally as long, and it is massive and very detailed, so it might be a very long video. But again, thank you all for watching, and if you've been in this position, try not to get discouraged. All this is about is finding things to improve on, and I found a big one. Take care.